if you hate the Chiefs, the Raiders, or the Chargers, please go ahead, make sure you subscribe to the channel because this is the Broncos channel for you. You're in good company here when you hit that sub button and get yourself locked in for daily Broncos content. What's going on, Broncos Country? Matthew Peterson from Chat Sports here with a Broncos trade mailbag. So the way this works is I posted over on our community tab, hey, comment your best trade ideas and we will incorporate them into our next show. So that's what we're doing here. So if you want to be on a future mailbag, really simple stuff, subscribe and comment away. So our first trade idea comes in from a longtime viewer here, Ronald Samples, who is suggesting the Broncos trade Malik Reed and get a third or a fourth, ambitious, because Paton said we'll have more picks in the upcoming draft. So let's break down Malik Reed trade rumors because they have been hot and popping lately. We've talked about it before on the channel, and I think trading Malik Reed makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways, right? You've got a good player who had 8 sacks for your team just 2 seasons ago. He's kind of towards the bottom of the depth chart right now when you got Randy Gregory and Nick Bonito coming over this offseason. But I pumped the brakes a little bit because you got Randy Gregory and Bradley Chubb as your starting edge rushers, and neither player has shown that they can play a full season the last couple of years. And then you go look at the draft capital for 2023 and what Ronald talked about, which is George Paton wants to get more picks. I hope he does, because 5 is not a good plethora of picks to have. You don't have your first or your second. That belongs to Seattle. You have 2/3, right? Remember, you made the trade with the Colts so they can move up and get a safety, and you picked up a future third-round pick. A 4th, a 5th, and a 7th. No 6th-round pick. That belongs to Detroit, if memory serves me correct, from the Trinity Benson trade, right? Training camp MVP last year. Listen, I would do this trade if I were George Paton. If someone wants to offer me a 3rd or a 4th-round pick for Malik Reed, I'm jumping all over it. That ain't happening, though. I hate to break your heart, Ronald. You're not getting a day 2 pick for a fringe roster player who, granted, had 8 sacks last year, 2 seasons ago, but they were kind of empty-ish sacks because you didn't have Chubb and Von Miller going 100% with one another, and Malik Reed was just kind of at the right place, the right time. I don't know if he can be a consistent every down pass rusher for your team. I don't think you're going to get a 3rd. You're definitely not getting a 3rd. I don't think you're going to get a 4th either. But if someone wants to offer you one of those picks for Reed, yeah, you take that without a doubt. But let's talk a little bit about our friend, our awesome GM, George Paton. Do you think he wants to acquire more picks? Or are you in the belief of, you know what? He probably wants to keep this roster intact, go into the draft with just 5 picks, and not ship away some players, but yet roll with the talented, loaded roster he has right now and try to really win now. All right, next trade idea comes in from James, who suggests that the Broncos trade Ronald Darby to the Patriots for a 5th-round pick. All right. Now I think we're getting closer to what players are worth a little bit. So Ronald Darby, if we check out some of his stats last year, after coming over from Washington in free agency, he was not a non-factor last year, dealt with some injuries or dealt with a big-ish injury, but no interceptions, just 6 pass breakups. And when you look at the stats as a whole, you don't walk away with a great taste in your mouth necessarily. But when you actually watched him play last year, I liked Darby. I thought Darby and Surtain made a nice duo on the outside, especially once Fuller got the boot and he was no longer a part of the starting lineup. I thought Darby was a very solid outside corner for this Broncos defense. Now, if we want to talk about trading Ronald Darby, we got to look at the finances here because he signed a 3-year, $30 million contract about a year ago. And if he were to be traded, the dead cap hit for this year would be $3 million. The dead cap hit for next year would be $3 million. So is Paton interested in paying someone $6 million to not be on his team? I don't really think so, especially when you look at just the cap savings, by the way, which were just a hair under $10 million. Now, that's a decent amount of savings, sure. And we know George Paton loves his defensive backs. But what's the point of saving $10 million if the peak of free agency is over with? What are you going to do? There's no one out there you're going to spend $10 million on. And we have learned Paton has an affinity for his defensive backs. He got a lot of phone calls last year about maybe the availability of some of DBs on his roster. He did not bite. I mean, he went with Surtain with the 9th overall pick, passed on a couple of questionable quarterbacks. I mean, that was definitely a hot topic back then, but the pick is definitely shaping up to be a good selection by George. But we have learned in our limited scope of his tenure as a general manager, he likes stockpiling his corners. For that reason, I would not do this trade. I would not trade Ronald Darby for a 5th-round pick. You play in a division with Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Derek Carr. That's 6 games right there against top 15 quarterbacks. And I only say 15 because I have to include Carr because he's not top 10. But anywho, you play a lot of good QBs. Don't you want to have a lot of good corners in case you have an injury and you have some extra depth? Because if you trade Darby away and you start Ojemudia and Ojemudia gets hurt, all of a sudden Damari Mathis is looking like you're starting CB2, and that's not a movie I want to see just yet. All right, next trade idea comes in from Dayton, who suggests that the Broncos trade Bradley Chubb to the Browns. This is where the fireworks go off. And the Broncos get Greedy Williams. So just a flat player swap, corner for edge rusher. Let's start breaking this down by looking at Greedy Williams, who was a 2nd-round pick for the Browns a few years back. And he's been a very productive and reliable corner for them as of late. 2 interceptions a season ago. 10 pass breakups, just from the stats again, just kind of that rough surface scope. He looks like a pretty solid player, and he is a solid player for the Browns. But the bigger name here is trading Bradley Chubb. Here's what I'm going to say about Chubb. This is his last stand, in my opinion, right? He's entering the last year of his contract. It is all chips into the middle of the table. Is he going to be a future Bronco for years to come, or is he going to move on after his rookie contract and George Paton and Chubb will shake hands and go their separate ways? I want to buy in on Bradley Chubb for at least 2022. I know I've talked about trading Chubb before, and that was pre-draft. Now that the draft has passed, let's go all in on Bradley Chubb for this season. And for that reason, Shark Tank way, I'm out. I would not trade Bradley Chubb, even though we know Peyton loves corners, and bringing Greedy Williams, which would be a starting corner who would be the best CB3 on any team, pretty much. You know, it might be his own CB3 on the Browns right now. But regardless, I would not be in the market or business of trading Chubb away right before the season really gets going, when you want to believe that he will be a long-time player on this roster and not be a 5th overall bust. And it's not really a bust. The injury bug has really derailed him the last couple of years. But hopefully 2022 he can show, yep, I was worth that top pick, and I'm worth sticking around and giving another contract to. But speaking of this defense, who do you guys think will lead the Broncos in sacks in 2022? Will it be Bradley Chubb? Could it be the new guy, Randy Gregory? Or you want to go with an outside candidate? Whatever it is or whoever it is, let me know in the comments section below. Next trade idea comes in from Michael Polt, longtime commenter here on the show. Malik Reed for a 6. So now we're getting closer compared to earlier what Malik Reed's value is. But maybe a 5th on performance. You're not going to get you're not going to get that kind of clause from Malik Reed. It's not like Carson Wentz. Dalton Risner for a 4th. This team might not pop until the trade deadline. All right, well, we talked about Malik Reed earlier, but let's look at Dalton Risner, a player who was picked in the 2nd round out of Kansas State, and I have enjoyed watching him play football. That sounds a little weird and cliche, but he's been one of the more reliable guards in the NFL. Pro Football Focus ranked him 28th out of 82 qualifying guards last year, 2 sacks allowed and 4 penalties. I know that when the offensive line is underwhelming, it almost feels like it's by association, you are underwhelming. But Risner's entering the final year of that rookie contract. Why are you going to trade him now, right? I want him to be the long-term answer and solution at your left guard position, right? Hopefully it is an interior offensive line of Risner, Cushenberry and Quinn Miners for years to come, and Bowles on the left, and you figure out the right tackle spot next year with one of your, or with a third-round pick, or you want to move into the second, or free agency. Whatever it is, I'm in on Dalton Risner, at least for this season. Entering the last year of his deal, it doesn't work out, sure, you could, you're just not going to re-sign him, but you're not going to get a lot for him. In my opinion, you saw, was it Shaq Mason? Yeah, the Patriots traded one of the best guards in the NFL to the Bucks for a 5th-round pick, 6th-round pick. That was Shaq Mason. You're not going to get that most likely with Dalton Risner. And also, you just traded for Russell Wilson. Why would you go out and get one of the best quarterbacks in the game and then start chipping away at his new offensive line? That doesn't seem like it's a good plan or a safe idea. No. Keep proven talent right now at the offensive line, which is already a little bit shaky, rather than trading Risner away and hoping Muti can be a great step up in replacement. So for that, I'm out. I would not do this trade. I am open to the idea of trying to acquire more picks because you only have 5 next year, but don't start at the offensive line, which was bottom half of the league last year. We call it that. And you don't for sure have a next man up first. You could trade Risner and start Miners and then keep Glasgow a part of the starting rotation, but a starting 5, but I would rather not do that. All right, last trade idea comes in from Elon, who suggests that the Broncos receive Javon Kinlaw and the 49ers get Malik Reed. Elon, if you can pull this off, you could sell beachfront property in Oklahoma, because I don't see a way the 49ers accept a trade where they move on from a first-round pick of theirs from 2 years ago, who only played in a handful of games last year, got injured. You're not doing a player swap where the 49ers get a worse player. I know Kinlaw has been a little bit underwhelming so far in the Bay Area, but they still have high expectations. Would be a good idea. Would be nice to maybe beef up that interior defensive line a little bit, because outside of DJ Jones and Draymond Jones, Najim or Deshaun Williams or your rookie EU, all of them are kind of hopes and prayers. None of them have really proven that they can be a 17-game starter. All right, to wrap up the show, though, I want to give some shout-outs here, because on our last Broncos Breakdown, I said comment where you are watching from, and I'm going to pick 10 guys or girls and give them shout-outs. So R&R is in Phoenix, Arizona. Rod Williams watching from Buffalo, New York. Paul is in Parker, Colorado. Marcus is watching all the way from Hamburg, Germany. Guten Tag. Derek is in Richmond, Virginia. Adam's in Denver. Eddie's in Greeley. I hope it's not smelling too bad today. Matt Space is watching from Cleveland, Mississippi. Derek is in Draper, Utah, the home of Zach Wilson, the you-know-what slayer. And John Robinson is watching from Waterloo, Canada. So we're international. We're coast to coast here. I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. And hey, if you made it this far in the video, just comment FKC, because this is the end of the video squad, right? These are the guys and girls that are watching all the way through. So appreciate all of you for making us a part of your day. Spam FKC for being a part of the end of the video squad. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. Get locked in for the best Broncos YouTube coverage out there.